All right, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the program. It's Good Afternoon, Ghana. My name is Ani Efo Ampofo, and we'll be taking you through a couple of activities. But first, let me apologize profusely for our inability to have Adai Nimo on the platform. It was scheduled earlier by producers, but there was a last-minute emergency which he has to attend to. I cannot put it on air, but of course he has communicated it, and so we've agreed to reschedule the interview for another time, probably before the showdown that will happen between himself and, of course, Boachi Jako, for them to make it, or one of them to make it to the top 5 as a part of the super delegate exercise being organized by the New Patriotic Party, NPP. So we'll bring you the details of that, when that schedule is done. But still, in the news, is more France countries, sending a strong signal, most especially the people of the country, not even the military that's carrying out the coup, right? So we're turning our attention to Gabon this afternoon to bring you some more details of what's going on in that country. As you know, it has been yet another coup d'etat recorded in the West African sub-region. It has been predicted by some experts and analysts that we should be expecting at least not less than 4 more in these, Francophone countries. Is this going to have an effect on Anglophone countries? We'll see about that. We'll be speaking later to David AGBEE, who is at the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security on this platform. Let's turn our attention to that and, analyze the situation and see what we have to do going forward. Let's take a breather. When we come back, we'll start the discussion. All right, you're welcome back to Good Afternoon, Ghana. And I earlier on, I apologize to you. I just have to repeat it that, profusely, we apologize, the production team, to you for our inability to bring you the interview with Adai Nimo. He has to attend to a last-minute emergency that he's been called into. And so we have to reschedule this interview, and we'll try as much as possible to bring you that interview before the runoff that he's having with Boachi Ejako to determine who makes it to the top 5 of the super delegate conference that was organized by the New Patriotic Party. But we still have some more important stories also within the media, and that has to do with a coup that's happening across or sweeping through the Francophone countries in West Africa. The latest having joined is Gabon. And let's give you one interview that the news team has actually come across. It just came out minutes ago with the Gabon president, Ali Bongo Dimba, who is calling on his friends to, make noise and tell us more what's happening to him after the coup. Let's have that interview.
I'm Ali Bongo Ondimba, president of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, for the people here have arrested me and my family. My son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm in the residence and nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really. I'm thanking you.
So that is the president of Gabon, who is pleading with leaders across the world, friends, as he puts it, across the world to come to his aid. He has said in that video that nothing is happening. Of course, at some point, nothing probably will happen. So you'll be blacked out of what's going on in the world, and that's what's happening to him. He has no idea where his wife is, his son as well, as he says. His son has also been captured by the coup leaders. We also have some videos on the streets of Gabon. We'll bring them to you. But for now, there were some videos that we also saw of army leaders who were addressing the people in French. And the story actually says that army leaders had appeared on national TV in Gabon to say that they have taken over power, and they said that they were annulling the results of the Saturday election in which President Ali Bongo was declared a winner. Now, the Electoral Commission said Mr. Bongo had won just under 2/3 of votes in the election, and the opposition argued was fraudulent. Okay, so his overthrow would end his family's 53-year hold on power in Gabon. 12 soldiers appeared on television announcing they were cancelling the results of the elections and dissolving all institutions of the republic. It goes on to say, one of the soldiers said on TV channel Gabon 24 that we have decided to defend peace and putting an end to the current regime. This, he added, was down to responsible, unpredictable governance resulting in the continuing of deterioration in social cohesion that risks leading the country into chaos. Now, Mr. Bongo came to power when his father Omar died in 2009. In 2018, he suffered a stroke, which did sideline him from almost a year, led to calls for him to step aside. The following year, a failed coup attempt saw mutinying soldiers sent to prison. And those were, maybe in summary, what was said in French by the soldiers. But let's get the video.
Imprévisible, qui se traduit par une dégradation continue de la cohésion sociale, risquant de conduire le pays au chaos. Ce jour, 30 août 2023, nous, forces de défense et de sécurité, réunis au sein du Comité pour la transition et la restauration des institutions, CTRI, au nom du peuple gabonais et garant de la protection des institutions, avons décidé de défendre la paix en mettant fin au régime en place. À cet effet, les élections générales du 26 août 2023, ainsi que les résultats tronqués, sont annulés. Les frontières sont fermées jusqu'à nouvel ordre. Toutes les institutions de la République sont dissoutes, notamment le gouvernement, le Sénat, l'Assemblée nationale, la Cour constitutionnelle, le Conseil économique, social et environnemental, le Conseil gabonais des élections. Nous appelons la population, les communautés des pays frères installés au Gabon, ainsi que les Gabonais de la diaspora, au calme et
All right, so as said in that video, that's what I captured in summary, what they're saying, that they've taken over power, and of course, the Gabon president. And you know, earlier on when you saw the Gabon president, he called himself the president of Gabon, right? But you know, when there's coup d'etat, you no longer hold the title president, but of course, in his capacity, I think it's right in his sense to, you know, continue to use it. But let's speak with David AGBEE, who is at the Institute of Governance and Security on this development. David, thank you for your time. You're welcome to Good Afternoon, Ghana. Thanks for joining us. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes,
right.
I can hear you.
Okay. Have you been able to follow, at least from yesterday, the developments that's coming up from Gabon, and what have you been able to pick up?
Yes, I've been following up keenly because it borders on my territory of study. So anything that borders on security, that borders on international relations and governance, that is my area. So I've been following the development keenly. within the context of Africa, and the kind of phenomenon, the coup phenomenon, re-emerging is something that, as a continent, we need to be worried about what is occasioning some of these phenomenon of coup d'etat. In the 1960s, this phenomenon was actually coming up. But it got to a point in time that there was more like a political settlement of coup in Africa. But of late, it is re-emerging, which we need to interrogate as to what is accounting for those, deficits of coup d'etat which are emerging in African, sub-regions.
I'm not sure if maybe it's because in Africa, democracy is still growing, is still developing. But I can also say that even in the Western world that introduced democracy, they're still growing, But if you watch the history of in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, there are certain periods that you see that coup becomes a cycle until at some point it stops. So is it a reality if we say that, we don't even want to see coup any longer? But within a certain generation, you see that it keeps coming and then it becomes a cycle until it stops at a certain point.
I can say that in the developed world, democracy has actually been consolidated. And democracy has actually benefited various societies of developed countries. Whereas in the context of Africa, democracy has not actually benefited citizens, but it has actually benefited the political elite, people who are ministers of state, people who are presidents, people who are in the political circles. Democracy has actually benefited them. But you realize that ordinary citizens of various states in Africa, democracy has never been the benefit to us. Whereas in the developed world, you will see the dividends of democracy reflecting in the life of ordinary citizens. At least I can say that I've traveled a lot and I've seen what democracy has done to the developed world. But when I come back to Africa, I can tell you that you wouldn't see the dividends of democracy flourishing in African continent. And those are the dividends, those are the deficits of democracy which are spreading across, telling citizens, telling various institutions that democracy is not something benefiting the African continent, because those who are leading us do not really understand democracy and they are not using the democratic credentials to enhance the society. And that is why you see a sharp dichotomy between citizens and the politicians. And when you see that sharp dichotomy between citizens and the political elite, some of these things will happen because ordinary citizens are fighting for the socio-economic things which need to reflect in their lives, such that they can say that democracy is actually, reflecting in their lives. We are not seeing that social dimension of transforming, people's lives. We are not seeing the economic benefits. We are not seeing the transparent system of governance where ministers are milking the state, where government and its functionaries are milking the state, and ordinary people are just looking on. So it has got to a point in time that people in the Francophone states, especially, have realized that no, they need to regain their political independence. And that is why they are challenging the status quo to say that we will not allow people to use democracy as a weapon to milk the state, whereas ordinary citizens will look on. And that is why they are challenging the status quo to say that enough is enough. They are going to challenge the political leaders. They are going to ensure that the legitimacy which have been given to the political elite is now being challenged. And those are the phenomena we are seeing of coup d'etat happening, because ordinary citizens are not seeing development in their lives. They are not seeing economic benefits. They are not seeing social transformation. They are not seeing things which need to manifest in their lives that support democratic trajectory of the developed world. And that is why they are fighting against those things happening in Africa now. So they are saying that coup d'etat, which used to be the case in the 1960s, they have to bring it back. to ensure that they challenge the status quo of how politicians are using the democracy to actually benefit themselves, whereas ordinary citizens who are supposed to benefit from the democracy are not getting those dividends. And that is why they are challenging the status quo now.
Are we sure that it is not a case of selfishness and greed on the part of the leaders as opposed to less knowledge of democracy?
I think that as somebody who has studied, what governance is all about, I can say that the leaders that we have in Africa, really, when you use the word greed, you are hitting on it just like, you are pressing a weapon. And let me say that it is the greed of our leaders who do not really want to use democracy to benefit society. And that is why ordinary citizens have seen that politicians are using the doctrine of democracy to benefit themselves, whereas ordinary citizens are not getting the dividends of democracy. Just like you mentioned, in the developed states that I have traveled to many times and in many situations, I see democracy reflecting in the life of people every single day. I see how countries have been developed. If you are talking about Africa, you are not seeing railways being constructed within African continent connecting with one another. I am not seeing road networks being done properly. I am not seeing people getting food on their table every day. I am seeing, poverty. I'm seeing hunger every day. I am seeing the fact that people are not getting basic necessities of life every day. And so when you are telling them about democracy, it is all about saying that it is only enhancing the image of the political elite. And so when democracy manifests in society, it has to see some transformation in the life of ordinary people, where they will say that this is an ideology, this is a norm, these are values which need to reflect in the daily life of people. They are not seeing those democratic values, they are not seeing democratic dividends reflecting in the life of people, which makes things very easy for ordinary people to see that government is actually performing, government is actually doing what citizens want. So you see that sharp dichotomy between ordinary citizens and politicians. And especially, you will see that your colleague that you used to be, students together, he enters into politics within 2 years, his life has sharply been transformed, whereas you are still wallowing in poverty. So you will see those things and you tell yourself, is it democracy that we support, or some group of people are just benefiting from democracy, whereas ordinary citizens suffer the consequences? So when you are seeing some of these coups d'etat happening in Africa, it is telling you that the democracy that we are talking about is actually lacking in the context of governance. When you talk about governance, you are looking at transparency in the system. You are looking at the fact that ordinary citizens, what needs to be done to enhance the image of ordinary citizens are being done. But we are not seeing those things. So it is just painting a picture to us that there is a democratic, trend which is falling, it's declining, and we need to wake up as a continent to sharpen our skills, to challenge our leaders that democracy is what we wanted, but it looks as if you people are using democracy to your advantage and leaving ordinary citizens to wallow in poverty.
So let's shift our attention to Gaddafi, former Libyan leader who was killed. If you look at Gaddafi, you see that he shifted a bit from this democratic rule and still remained a leader of the military and revolutionary committees and all. He was even supporting Pan-Africanism. He was supporting the Zionists. He was supporting he was supporting the freedom for Africa. he also, was such an anti-imperialist. He was looking at how colonial masters have taken advantage of the country that they ruled, that they so-called say that they have now given them freedom, but you knew that there was imperialism that was still festering in these African countries. If you also look at his benefit, the achievements he had for Libya, we know how Libya was when Gaddafi was in power. We know what Libya is today. So if you are saying that it is democracy that is not even good for Africa, if we take, for example, what Libya was like and the kind of governance it was, championing, but today, that country has been destabilized, and it is the state in which it is today, then what exactly are we looking at? What are we considering?
Yeah, I am not saying that democracy is not good for Africa, but I'm saying that politicians are using democracy as a cliche to their benefit, whereas ordinary citizens are not getting the dividends of democracy. When you are talking about dividends of democracy, there are things which need to be done so that ordinary citizens will benefit. And I made mention of the fact that railway construction within the African continent has to be done. You are thinking about higher goals and higher dreams which ordinary citizens need to benefit. Food on the table. There shouldn't be hunger. But here is the case you are in African continent. People cannot even get the food to eat. And so when you are talking to them about democracy, they are looking at you and asking themselves whether you are telling them what needs to be done to them, or it is only the politicians who are just benefiting from the dividends of democracy. So in the context of Gaddafi, as we made mention, you talked about all the good things that Gaddafi has done. But unfortunately for us, as a continent of Africa, we allow Gaddafi to be murdered by the group of the Western world, especially NATO. The NATO invasion in Libya in 2011 has been a blow to the continent of Africa. We allow Gaddafi to be murdered. We didn't challenge the Western world, and we allowed Gaddafi to be murdered. And that is why we are where we are as we speak. Flip the coin to Rwanda. Rwanda President Paul Kagame was a military leader. But look at how he has been able to transform Rwanda as we speak. So, military leaders in Africa, Gaddafi, for instance, and Paul Kagame, have been able to transform their various economies. And so you could say that they are transformational leaders and they know what needs to be done for their citizens. But majority of the African countries, you are not seeing democracy flourishing. You are not seeing them doing what needs to be done for ordinary citizens to actually benefit. And so those are the things occasion the continual coups that we have seen for almost about from 2020 to date. We've seen almost about 7 coups, which are very successful now. And so they are looking at all the scenarios to say that, are we practicing democracy to the benefit of the political elite, or democracy has to actually benefit ordinary citizens, where ordinary citizens will feel comfortable in their own country and they can hold the flags of their country and say that this is the country that I cherish and this is the country that I was born in and I'm proud of that country. If you have a Ghanaian, he will tell you that he wishes that he could even migrate to a different country where he can become a citizen of that country, because what we expected for our leaders to do for us, they are not doing it. So ordinary citizens are becoming more frustrated, and so they are fueling their anger and they are challenging the status quo that no, this is not what we were expecting. And so things need to be done in a different manner for us. And that is why we are seeing some of these things happening.
So with regards to Gabon, if you look at it, we say that, it's democracy. We're supposed to be benefiting from democracy. But democracy, sometimes, of course, is changing of power within a certain period. We go to the polls, we vote, we change leaders. If we want, we maintain them. Now, with Gabon, you have a particular family that's been in governance for about 54 years, but they always go to the polls anyway to go and vote. They always go to the polls to go and vote. But this particular family has been ruling for that period. So do you also think that is the frustration of the people is targeted at the family that's been in power for so long, or it's about they not getting what they are deserving of as practicing democratic governance?
I think you are talking purely as a Ghanaian, and that is what Ghanaians understand. It's all about electoral democracy that Ghanaians talk about.
Right.
Going into the pool and go and vote, and that is the end of it. But that is not democracy. Democracy is not about just going to the polls and giving the opportunity to vote. When after expressing your vote or after you voted for a candidate, that candidate needs to transform the society. That candidate needs to ensure that he governs. And governing means that making things easier for ordinary citizens. Governing means that the economic indicators need to be there for ordinary people to actually benefit. It is all about putting in infrastructures. If you don't have universities, it is the responsibility of the one that you voted for has to provide you with universities, polytechnics, hospitals. Those social amenities need to be provided. I mean, road constructions, railway constructions, and all those things need to be there. And in my life in Europe, at least I've traveled almost about 17 countries in Europe. Within 2 years, I didn't even buy plane ticket, but I used railway lines. I can travel to all the 27 European countries without using more like flying. It is all about making sure that you provide basic necessities for people to move freely and be able to find jobs to do. Here we are in Africa. Ordinary citizens do not get jobs to do. So what do you expect them to actually do when you are telling them democracy, where people are being visited by poverty and hunger every now and then? And so it is the responsibility of the leaders that we vote them for, them to actually provide those amenities for citizens. So it is not only about the electoral vote. What we do best in Ghana is all about electoral vote, where we allow citizens to go and vote. And after voting, we don't demand for social amenities. We don't demand infrastructure to be built. We don't demand good governance. We don't demand accountability. All that we expect is that the next year, 4 years, is likely to come. So if you don't like that particular government, you vote him out. It is not about that. It is about making sure and taxing that particular government to do what needs to be done for society and society to actually develop, so that they can say that, yes, this is an ideology, this is a norm, these are values of democracy, where they are calling for accountability of their leaders. So democracy is not about voting. No, it is just an iota of democracy. But the fundamental issues about democracy is about making society being governed properly for ordinary citizens to get the benefit of that democracy we are talking about.
Now let's focus on the type of coup that we're seeing today. Maybe the likes of me, and as you say, speaking as a Ghanaian, I have not seen my whole life. I have not seen any coup happen in Ghana as long as I've existed. But I see what's happening today in other countries, and by the history of what I have read, it looks like coup has taken a different twist, where in the past, coup will happen and you hear that people are being killed, people are being murdered, people are being chased out and all that. But today we see this coup in these Francophone countries, and the people are pouring out onto the streets, jubilating. If you can give us, the education on these two different scenarios I've cited.
Yes, like you made mention, you are a typical Ghanaian just like myself. And lucky you, to the extent that I could say, when we were studying political science, one of the professors told me that, in fact, what we need to be proud of is the fact that there has been a political settlement of all coups in Ghana, which happened during 1990s, when Rawlings handed over power, peacefully to former President Rawlings. And so he christened it as the political settlement of all coups. So after Jerry John Rawlings, 1981, thereabouts, he was able to control the affairs of the country such that we've never experienced any coup in Ghana since 1981. And so that is a good sign for us. But when you juxtapose it to what is happening in the Francophone, countries in Africa, which happened in Gabon, only, yesterday or this dawn, and Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, and other countries which has experienced coup d'etat, I can say that they just want to regain their political independence. That is what they are fighting for, because within the Francophone countries, we need to diagnose what is actually occasion for some of these coups. And I can tell you that it is part of the Francophone Pact that France has signed with their former, colony. And they've seen that it is quite detrimental to them. When you go to Gabon, when you go to Guinea, when you go to the Francophone countries, they are saving almost 80% of their revenue with France. Whereas when they need any money, only the 20% is used for them to do whatever social amenities or road construction or whatever. So they've seen that the Francophone Pact, which was signed, is so detrimental to them. And they are fighting to regain their self-independence or to gain what we will call self-determination. So I am saying that, yes, in the context of Ghana, since 1981, we've not seen any coup. It is only 1960s that we saw coup, and 70s and 80s. After that, there was a dramatic change of political paradigm where Rawlings ensured that democracy actually worked when he signed the 1992 Constitution for us. So since then, practically, we've been practicing democracy, but it has gotten to a certain peak in time that people have seen that, yes, although Ghana is practicing democracy, but it has gotten to a point in time that the political elite are using democracy to flourish their life, to benefit themselves, and to ensure that they become powerful in society, whereas ordinary citizens that always vote for them become poorer and poorer in society.
Yeah.
And that is
would you say that we are pretending to be practicing democracy, but it seemed to be a coup in disguise by your description of how African leaders are ruling?
For some time now, I can tell you that from 2020 up to date, I am not seeing Ghana being practicing democracy that I've studied in outside the country. I am not seeing democracy as what I do know and what I've studied academically, theoretically, and practically. I am not seeing democracy. Because why am I saying that? I mean, few days ago, there was a news that all of you broadcasted to the nation to the extent that Bank of Ghana has spent over 60.8 billion. And then what we could hear from the governor of Bank of Ghana is that governor of Bank of Ghana to say that they are not a profit-making organization, and all the losses that they've incurred is a technical loss. I've not seen any of those things in any of the developed countries that I've stayed. Not at all. You won't see those things. You will not see corruption being, all over the country. I can list almost about 110 corruption cases which have happened within a short period of time. But for Ghanaians, what we do, we are timid in society and we cannot challenge the status quo. And so, as a political scientist and understanding security into that detail, I can tell you that for a short, reasonable period of time now, when somebody tells me that Ghana is practicing democracy, I just laugh because I understand what democracy means and what society need to do to ensure that democracy actually flourishes. So when politicians in Ghana, especially the MPs, are talking about democracy, some of us who understand the theoretical underpinnings of democracy, we laugh at them to say that this is not a democratic country. If we are actually practicing democracy, some of these bad things need not to happen to the country every now and then. We need to challenge the status quo and to ensure that our government performs creditably for us, so that we can say that this is a democratic country that we all need to live in and to be proud of that phenomenon or ideology of democracy. So to say that are we satisfied, I can tell you that I am not seeing that dividends of democracy flourishing in Ghana. And we need to change the paradigm so that people will benefit from democracy.
So what are we practicing?
I mean, if you want me to say, I can say that it is just a group of people occupying some political spaces, pretending to be leaders, whereas they are not qualified to be called leaders.
Let's look at the factors of this coup. Maybe going back to the African countries, what are the common factors that you see with at least we have Mali, we have Guinea, we have Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon, Ivory Coast, all these countries that are struggling. What do we see common with them that they want to carry out a coup? Some of them haven't really been able to carry out the coup.
The common denominator or factors which are occasioning some of these coups. One is poverty. There is so much endemic poverty in Africa. There is hunger in the system. And so when people are so, hungry, they cannot get food on their table, some of these things will come. They are fighting for their socioeconomic, factors. They are looking for good roads. They are looking for good schools. They are looking for good universities. They are looking for hospitals being built for them. They are looking for, factors that will actually transform the society, for the society to realize that there is democracy flourishing. They want to see a transformation in their life. They want to see their president and government performing very well, so that when they live in that society, they can say that, yes, I am living in a country that presidents or ministers are doing what needs to be done. And so while they are not seeing those things, coup will always manifest. So if you ask me, I can tell you that it is all about misgovernance, which is some of these things.
Okay, how about me thinking that maybe the poverty, better life they're expecting, and all the hardship that they're going through, those are just the give-offs, the results of maybe the very common factor of imperialism they are suffering from France. Is that not number one factor?
The imperialism is there. The imperialism is there, but it is not the imperialism alone. It is about their government failing them. There is a mismatch between the politicians and ordinary people do not have a job to do. And so if you live in a country that you cannot get a job to do, it will affect your life expectancy. It will affect your upbringing. It will affect your pension fund. It will affect your social well-being. And so human beings, we are supposed to be liberated from some of these quagmires. And so people are only saying that enough is enough, and people that have been entrusted with political power, they need to do what is good for society to ensure that they are also part of society. And so while they are not seeing those things happening in their daily life, where they are struggling every day, they will be cool. And so we need to provide people with a common job. When you get a job to do, it gives you some reasonable way of survival. And if you cannot survive on this earth, why did we even, come to this earth? So people are only struggling for their basic economic survival. And so we need to really transform our various societies where democratic pillars are being used to govern, our various countries. So some of these coups happening in African countries tells us that there is a lot for us to do to ensure that people get the benefits of what democracy is all about. But what we are doing in Africa, I look at it and I tell myself that democracy is not about what our ministers are doing or what our presidents are doing, but every day corrupting the whole society, manipulating the political system to their advantage. That is not the essence of democracy at all.
Now, we know that there has been the earlier predictions by spiritual leaders. It has now come to your level of the technical men who have studied these environments or security and can predict that maybe in the next 4 years, this is the intelligence we're picking from this country, something is going to happen. And I think all your predictions are coming to pass. We're expecting 4 more as predicted by experts, should Anglophone countries be worried?
Let me say that for me, I am not a soothsayer, but where I've studied and where I've lived all my life, I can say that what we are practicing now, if somebody should predict, if you get an support to predict that something is going to happen, it is as a result of the fact that we've not seen how countries have been, developed elsewhere. I've lived in a country that I can say Christians constitute only 20%, and the majority, 80%, do not believe in any Christianity. But what they do believe in is that they know what is good and they know what is bad. Whereas in the context of Africa, every single day we follow religious leaders, whereas we do not even know what is good and what is bad. Right. So I will not go into the predictions of those things, but I can say that it is the failure of us to govern our society, to the expectations of ordinary people. And that is why some of these coup d'etats are happening. And so to be able to, navigate through the processes of stopping the coups, we need to learn how to govern and how to govern properly so that society will actually benefit from the ideology of democracy, which has been practiced in other countries, and they've been so much, flourished to the extent that you will not see endemic poverty in various societies at all. When you live in Europe or you live in any developed country, you will see that democracy is actually good, where people are getting basic jobs to do. People do not struggle in their daily life. Jobs are there. Houses are there for people to occupy. Road construction has been done. Hospital facilities are there. Schools are there. Every social amenities that you need in your life, you will actually get it. And that is where democracy is actually flourishing. But in the context of Ghana, somebody who borrowed money to the extent of almost 600 billion, you ask the person, what have you used the money to do? They will tell you that I've only used it to build toilet facilities. And I ask myself, is this government we are talking about, or it is about a group of people mobilizing themselves to rob the state?
Is Rwanda getting it rightly? Is Rwanda getting it rightly? Because it looks like it's a spotlight today when it comes to the growing economy of an African country. Is Rwanda on the right path?
I can tell you that Paul Kagame, my friend, is doing very, very well. When you travel to, Paul Kagame's, place, Rwanda, you will enjoy the society. You will enjoy a free and serene environment where you see intellectuals articulating their intellectual ability to enhance their economy. You will see transformation in the life of people. You will see that basic necessities of life are being provided to people. So Paul Kagame got it all right. He's doing very, very well. Muammar Gaddafi got it very, very well. Only that the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, just eliminated, Muammar Gaddafi. Just like that, with the support of some of the African leaders, we eliminated, Muammar Gaddafi. So the rest, you go to South Africa. South Africa is doing very, very well. Although there is, you see the anger there being, to the extent that they are sacking African indigents here and there. But you go deep to South Africa, you will live and enjoy life in some of those, countries. But you realize that majority of African states, we are not doing what needs to be done to enhance the society, to benefit ordinary citizens, and to benefit the society itself. So we have a lot to do to enhance the image of the continent of Africa. If we don't do that, we shouldn't cry about coup d'etat happening in Africa. We should be able to challenge various governments that they need to govern properly. When they are able to govern properly, some of these coup d'etat will not manifest. But when they fail to govern, society will challenge them, and we'll see the phenomenon of coup d'etat, continuing flourishing. And that is where it will spark people to say that we need to do what needs to be done for society. If not, they will overthrow our government. So some of these things happening, we should not talk about the negative side of it, but we should look at the consequences of everything that we do so that people will learn how to govern. If people do not learn how to govern, society will continue to suffer.
Mr. David AGBEE, I'll leave it here. Thank you. I'm sure that we're going to go through this with you as we're still seeing some more development in these countries. But for now, we'll pause here with this interview. I'm grateful for you joining us. And David is of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. This one says, good afternoon, Annie. Our EC should be very careful of handling issues concerning our voter register. Anybody who wants to be in power by force will not work. The youth are angry already. She should be very careful. This is an advice coming from Apasibasi Aboya Barnabas on Facebook. But you still have some more messages. I just wanted to take a break and maybe come and wrap up with you. So let me take a break now. When I come back, I'll just wrap up. You're welcome back to Good Afternoon, Ghana. We're wrapping up. We earlier on had an interview with David AGBEE of the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security on developments in Gabon and other, West African countries, to be specific, Francophone countries. Do we have to fear as Anglophone countries? Maybe yes, maybe not. But the general advice is for the leaders to watch themselves because it doesn't look like, even with democracy, they are practicing it to the last bit of what is expected of them, making lives easier for its people as in regarding Africans themselves. So, and it should be told, the only antidote to coup is good and transparent governance that yields improved living standards for the people. Unfortunately, most African leaders think that once everyone is saying that they prefer democratic rule, they take advantage of that to deliver substandard governance and plunder the resources to the state to the benefit of only their immediate family members and friends. So until such leaders become aware of the repercussions of bad governance, I am afraid coup would continue to emerge from time to time. Sam Kelly of East Legon sent this in, and okay, this message is quite long. I cannot read it, but my time is up. So let me just wrap up here. We're still monitoring activities of what's going on in Gabon. Are there other more African countries coming up with coup? When they happen, we definitely will break them here for you to know. This is your election center. That's Metro TV, and we'll be following up with these African countries and bring you all the updates. We've had the leader of Gabon say a few things, calling on leaders and friends to make noise because he's been captured and he doesn't know what's happening. Nothing actually is happening. But let's have a video just to close the show of this Gabon president with the French President Macron attending one of these international meetings. Let's have that video. Okay, so when you have leaders that we're talking about, if you are not even capable for your own self, then how are you going to be capable and be catering for the larger people, right? Okay, so this is where we end. Good afternoon, Ghana. We'll be following more and bringing some more details later on. My name is Ania Frampofo. Thanks for watching.